The Mississippi Bullet, known as Monta Ellis, sat down with Zach Randolph and Tony Allen on their podcast called On the Mud. Make sure y'all check that out. This was an incredible interview, man. Monta Ellis is not known to sit down and talk. He don't talk a lot, period. So, all of us Mississippians and fans of Monta Ellis, we knew this would be a great interview. And it was gonna be interesting to see like what he had to talk about because he don't talk. Some of the biggest takeaways from this interview is that Monta Ellis exposed some of the turmoil he experienced with the Golden State Warriors, pre-drafted, and also his departure from the team. Uh, we really never knew exactly what happened from the outside looking in, and on this podcast, he spoke on it along with uh, other things as far as like the game of basketball, how it's played now, and how he predicted that it will be taken over by non-Americans due to the style of play and due to players nowadays not really practicing and owning their craft with fundamentals. He even exposed how in his camp he teaches, the players not to celebrate because a bucket is a bucket. But I want us to talk about first. It was just exciting to hear him talk about his stomping grounds and how he had Lanier in a chokehold, and the hype that he had being a high school basketball player because now that don't allow high school players to declare for the draft, and it's a small percentage of NBA players that not only got drafted out of high school but were able to have a substantial career. And Monta Ellis is one of those people. He came out of high school, man, and he did it all. Won state championships, dropped like 70 some points in a game, and had people piled up wall to wall. Knees next to knees to watch him play, and he lived up to expectations. Monte talked about that he was supposed to be drafted higher, but because an individual by the name of Sonny, if I'm not mistaken, he came out of nowhere, was trying to be like his agent or something. Monte wasn't going for it because he like, I don't work this hard, and you think I'm gonna just hand you the keys to this automobile that I built and drove to get to this destination? Nah. And he said that completely changed the trajectory of where he got drafted. He didn't even work out for Golden State and ended up being drafted by him. And they had so much faith in Monte, they didn't send him to the G League. So that says a lot about his talent. He spoke about playing in Oracle Arena, how the Bay Area was so receptive to him. He never had any problems. Also saying that that's the best crowd in the NBA ever. And he was saying that even when they were losing and getting demolished by teams, they were showing up like they was winning championships like the Golden State Warriors under the Steph Curry era. So those were some interesting facts, man. He said he has a lot of love for the Bay, and if it wasn't for it being so hot out there, he would actually live there. Uh, Monte Monte was a bucket, man. Like everybody knows who's tapped in with basketball. They know he could score, and he played bigger than his size. And for him not to have made the All Star team not one time was, you know, questionable. So they asked him about that. And shout out to Zach Randolph and Tony Allen because it says a lot about their character that Monte will even be willing to sit down and talk about, all these things with them because he know they not messy and they don't, throw a brick and hide their hand. So he was open to talking about things like that because that's a sensitive thing to talk about as a professional athlete when you know and your peers know that you're worthy of certain accolades and you don't get it. And I'm sure there's some hurt behind it. I mean, he admitted to being hurt, by how Golden State traded him, but he didn't necessarily like harp on not being an all star because he said that his piece with not making the all star not one time was that his peers respect his game. And that right there, you got to salute. But I definitely believe Monte should have been an all star at minimum at least three times. But not making it one time was just crazy. And he spoke about how players like Tony Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, they got all-star nods due to being on a championship team and being under the shadows of Tim Duncan. Now, I do believe Tony Parker, probably was deserving of an all-star too, but I ain't about to just, dive into it. But I understand where Monte was coming from. Um, Monte said that his departure from Golden State was similar to Luka Doncic's, and that he was told one thing yet again, and by the time he left the building and was in traffic, he was traded to another organization. And he didn't go into details, but he said even when Steph Curry arrived at Golden State, the organization was going through some things, and there was a lot of messy things going on, and a lot of players were throwing a brick and hiding his hand, and that's just some things that was already like creating tension that he didn't want to be a part of. But the icing on the cake was, when they got rid of him. And I think all basketball or aspiring professional athletes should watch this interview, because you understand that it's two different type of games. You have what happens on the field, on the court, and you have the other game with the people in the suits. And that's what he was bringing light to, um because of because of um because of being a professional athlete and thinking your talent is enough. You can set yourself up for heartbreak because you can't control what goes on with those suits. And just it was the same thing happened with Luca, and he's teaching the players that now in these camps. And I think that's one of the darkest experiences Monte has experienced, is just the business side, the politics. He's just a person that showed up to work and wanted to do his job, and he did his job, and that was it. He probably wasn't being buddy buddy with the media and doing all those interviews because he know all that stuff fake, and it probably cost him certain opportunities because there's favor with certain players because they're media friendly, or they play the game that the media wants them to play, and that's just not something he partaked in. Amazing interview, man. It's a lot more things that he touched on, but um, I just think everybody that's a fan of Monta Ellis, or if you're a fan of the NBA, this is one of those interviews that everyone should watch, because there's a lot of gems that Monta Ellis dropped in this interview, and I could go on and on, but the more I talk, it wouldn't be no point of watching the interview. Um, but Monta Ellis, man, was a very amazing player, and just because he didn't become an all-star, or just because he didn't win an NBA championship, it don't matter. Or he didn't get all first team all NBA and things like that. Uh, he impacted the culture of the Bay Area. He impacted his peers, and they always speak great about him, even on All the Smoke. I thought that would have been the first stop he made during the interview, because Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes are always showing a lot of respect to Monte, and that's what the game all about. And now he's giving back with his camp, and he sounds just as passionate about that as he did probably as a player, because he's grooming the next generation, not just to be skilled basketball players and play the game right, but also be better man, and be accountable and don't make certain mistakes to prohibit them from having a good life. So salute to Monta Ellis, salute to Out the Mud podcast, Zach Randolph and Tony Allen, man. Great interview, man. Make sure y'all check that out on YouTube. And while you at it, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the God Level Genius YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell. I am James Vergato, and as always, be God level. The genius is in you. God level genius.